For the last 100 days, I have been grinding one of the most brutal multiplayer modes I've ever experienced in my life, The Last of Us Factions. Factions is an online mode of The Last of Us that I used to play religiously back when it first released, but that was a long time ago. And so after all this time, I wanted to jump back in and see if I could get good enough at the game that I would be able to unlock some of its most prestigious rewards. And so for the next 100 days, I will be jumping back into multiplayer, learning all the mechanics, and trying to get my skill level back to a point where I can hold my own and win games against some of the sweatiest players I have ever played against in my life. Let's begin. Let me first break down how Factions works. When you first enter Factions, you will be asked if you want to be a hunter or a firefly. This decision doesn't mean a whole lot other than what clan you belong to. Once you've done that, your journey begins. You have 12 in-game weeks to survive, with the day going forward each time you complete a match. You are responsible for a group of survivors, and your goal is to keep these survivors alive by earning resources. You find resources in a few different ways, but the main ones are by killing enemies and picking up the resources from their dead bodies, and by supporting your own teammates by healing them and gifting them items. If you earn more resources than what you need in a match, you will increase the survivors in your group, but if you earn less resources than what you need, survivors will get sick and start to die. There are also missions that appear every week where if you meet the targets, you can increase your survivor count. However, as you move forward, you will also encounter negative missions as well, where if you don't hit the targets, a large number of your survivors will die. As your survivor group gets larger, so does the amount of resources you need to keep them alive, and so to hit big numbers of resources, you have to either be doing a lot of support or getting a lot of kills every game. This was going to be a problem. My goal on this journey was to get my survivor group to 100 survivors, which would allow us to unlock the Poet Fedora hat and the SWAT helmet. Easy, right? I still had my old save file, so I decided to start from where I left off, which was week 6. I already had 52 survivors, so who knows, maybe I would only need the remaining 6 weeks to reach 100 survivors. I'd played The Last of Us games countless times at this point. I knew the gunplay, and I thought I had a good chance of immediately dominating these lobbies. That hopefulness was short-lived. The first thing I noticed before even jumping into a match was just how many players had reached the maximum rank of 999. These guys have probably never stopped playing this game mode since it released 13 years ago. I jumped into my first game and was genuinely surprised at how well I was doing. I finished the game with 9 extra supplies and got 3 new survivors, but this victory was short-lived, and the next few games all went like this. I quickly remembered that Factions is not Call of Duty. You can't jump in and expect to run around and get at least a few lucky kills every game. This game punishes stupidity. I was earning just enough resources to keep my group of survivors alive, but I wasn't bringing any new ones in. And then after a few games, my first challenge appeared. If I could get 9 downs in the next 3 games using the full auto rifle, then I would be able to increase my existing survivor group by 10%, which was huge. Things did not start well. I only got 1 down in my first match and didn't get enough resources, which meant 5 of my survivors were now hungry and 3 of them were sick. I was in trouble. But then in the next game, things picked up and I got 5 downs with the full auto rifle, meaning I'd already reached 2 of the 3 targets for the challenge. The final game had its ups and downs. We again didn't earn enough supplies, which resulted in 1 survivor in the group dying, but we did get 3 downs with the auto rifle, which meant I'd completed the challenge and we had added 6 new survivors to the group. By week 7 we had 60 survivors, and somehow I was going to need another 40. And while the challenge helped, I was barely scraping by in games to get enough resources to increase the group. I experimented with different builds, I kept playing trying to understand the maps, but the harsh reality of this game is that every game you play will have at least 4 or 5 people at level 999 who are ready to make your life a living hell. The weirdest thing though was that even though I was getting completely abused in every game, it was incredibly addicting.
I love the pain.
My clan was getting sicker by the day. People were dying, and the countdown to week 12 was getting closer. I didn't really know what to do, but I didn't lose hope. In certain games I could feel myself improving, understanding map rotations better, and just getting more confident in my one-to-ones. I started to understand a few key things like staying close to your team, try and understand spawn locations, and flank when a fight is happening. I was determined to get better, but then something terrible happened. A negative challenge appeared where if I didn't get a certain amount of kills using Molotov cocktails in the next 3 games, my survivor group group was going to suffer a huge loss. And while I tried my best to catch enemies out, I was getting outplayed in every game. I couldn't get the kills, and I didn't meet my targets, which meant by the end of the third game, 60% of my survivor group was entirely wiped out, leaving me with only 19 survivors.
This is not okay.
It was at this point that I knew there was no chance of getting 100 survivors in this run, and so I spent the last couple of weeks trying out different builds, continuing to learn the maps, and preparing myself for a fresh run where everything was going to be different. We had a few decent games in those last weeks, but after failing another negative challenge, which I'd kind of given up on already, our entire clan died, and that was it for our first run. But I was ready for a fresh start, and things were immediately looking promising. I was getting kills, gaining resources, and had my best game so far, downing 7 enemies in a game of supply raid. Our survivor count was going up every day, and I started to think that this could be the run. But I also knew that it's a lot easier in those early weeks to get resources, as we don't have many survivors. By week 3, we had gotten all the way back up to 50 survivors. But again, I hit a brick wall. I seemed to be finishing every game with just enough resources to keep my survivors alive, but never enough to increase the size of the group. I needed a way to get more resources in every game. And that's when I found it. I did some research online and saw tons of advice from people trying to do the same as me, and they were all saying the same thing, that one of the best ways to get a load of resources in factions is to play a support role in the game mode Interrogations. Interrogations is a mode where you have to interrogate 5 enemy team members, which gives you the location of a safe that you have to unlock to win the game. There are 2 reasons people recommend playing this mode in the support role. Number 1, supporting teammates well can reward you with a ton of resources. If you're constantly healing your teammates and gifting them items, you'll often earn more parts than you ever would by just trying to get kills. And 2, interrogation modes are tough, and most of the time the game will last for the entire 15 minutes as teams try to either attack the enemy's safe or defend their own, meaning that you will have the max amount of time to go around and support your teammates and earn parts. Other game modes like Supply Raid can be over a lot quicker if you're fighting against a really good team, and so this was the new plan. I created a loadout that focused entirely on support and jumped into interrogations to see if this is what we needed to get our survivor count up, and I was not disappointed. I immediately could see how much better this strategy was. I stayed close to teammates, constantly healing them. I went around the map collecting, crafting, and gifting items, and immediately in my first few games, I was getting more resources per match than I ever did on Supply Raid. It was the first time I felt like hitting that magic 100 survivor number was actually going to be possible. But not every game went according to plan. Sometimes I would come up against insanely sweaty teams who would find and open our lockbox early into the game, meaning I didn't get enough time to get enough resources. We also came up against some negative challenges where even if you hit the final target, your clan size is still reduced by 20%. And so even though I could see the strategy improving, it still always felt like 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And then something happened that changed everything. Something I didn't even know was part of the game. If you dominate a game of interrogations and open the enemy's safe before they've been able to locate yours, you get what is called an absolute win. And these wins give you an insane number of parts. I got my first absolute win and was rewarded with 136 extra parts, which gave me 14 new survivors, taking us to 81 in total. I thought if I could just get a couple more wins like this, then we were definitely in with a chance. But these wins are not easy. 95% of the time in interrogations, both teams will locate the safe. So I was going to have to be put in a game with an insanely good team. Not only that, but the number of resources we needed now to keep the existing clan alive was insane. Even in a support role in really good games, I was just scraping by. I knew I wasn't going to get the clan size to 100 without something special. Luck struck again where I got another absolute win, and my survivor group was now up to 96, only 4 survivors away from our goal. But this hope was quickly shattered. Week 8 brought another negative challenge, which even though we maxed out, still cost us 20 survivors, taking us back down to 76. That's when I started to think about what challenges we had left that could positively and negatively affect the clan. That's when I found a post online that laid out every remaining challenge. I realized that the weeks that were going to make or break this challenge were weeks 8 and 9, where we would have 2 positive challenges back to back, which could increase the clan size by 20%. This would be my last chance to get this challenge done, because the final 2 weeks of this mode have 2 back-to-back negative challenges, which I knew there was no coming back from. We had a few poor games, but luckily got another absolute win, increasing our clan size by 8 taking us to 84 survivors. And now, it was time. Our first challenge we chose was gifting. We had to gift 12 items in the next 3 games, which I knew would be easy enough. I had mastered the art of gift giving by this point and was like some kind of post-apocalyptic Santa Claus. And so we played through interrogation, gifting my teammates at every opportunity. And by the 3rd day, even though we had a bad game, I met the target and increased the clan size to 92. We were so close now. We kept grinding for the next few games, just keeping our survivor count stable, and held off until the second positive challenge was presented to us. I decided to go for gift giving again, but this time I needed to gift 16 items in 3 games. Another absolute victory in the next game took us to 97 survivors, and I knew now that if I could just hold out and beat this challenge, we were there. The next 2 games were so intense. I was running around the map, crafting and gifting as much as I possibly could, making sure I got enough resources to just keep my survivors alive, and we even had 1 die on the 2nd day, but I did everything to meet my target, and by day 3, we had gifted 16 items, which meant that we had beaten the challenge and gotten our survivor group to 106 survivors. I'd done it, I'd reached my goal, and was rewarded with the Poet Fedora hat and the SWAT helmet, which I thought looked pretty dope. If you guys enjoyed this video, then check out my Wolfenstein challenge, which was even more torturous than this. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.